Welcome to the AI Hospitality Podcast. Um, Jeff, just to kind of break the ice, if you want to tell us a little bit about, your journey into hospitality. How do you land into your current project, and how did it all started? I think that's, everybody has a story to tell.
Sure.
So,
Sure. I'll give you a bit of a short and condensed version because I've actually, ironically, as we're recording this, I think it's tomorrow or the day after, I'm recording a solo independent because I've got a podcast myself. And I'm going to do a full deep dive into like the whole story, like where it happened, why it happened, like the really nitty gritty stuff that, unless you really want to know, that's what you're going to know. But I'll give you enough 30,000 foot view to get everyone kind of get the tone set. So, I grew up in a tiny little farm town, middle of nowhere. Did what everyone did, was working in retail, and then, in my mid 20s, I didn't want to do the same thing that everyone was doing in that area. And I literally just sat and said, what would I want to do for the rest of my life? I had no clue. And I was listing out things and trying to figure out what it was. And, I don't know, it just dawned on me. I said, I really like cooking food. I like cooking for my roommate. I like cooking. I loved cooking with my great grandmother growing up. I remember the meals that I had with her every time we would go over there for lunch and have just this cozy, nice meal. It was nothing fancy. It was just good food. And I said, you know what? I think I'd be happy doing that for the rest of my life. So I packed everything up and I moved to the suburbs of Chicago. I went to culinary school, and while I was in culinary school, the chefs are like, you need to find a job in hospitality. If you really want to make it, you need to find a job while you're in school. It's gonna be very difficult to get a degree and then just somebody's gonna hire you. So I applied everywhere. In the meantime, I transferred up from Home Depot. That's where I was working, and so I still had employment, but I applied to, I don't know how many, hundreds of jobs for anything. Like, you name it, I was applying. No callbacks. I'm like, oh, this is really hard to get a job in this industry with no experience. Because everyone, normally the story is I started at 15 dishwashing and they'd gone through the whole thing. So luckily, the casino that was in town actually had came out, and there was like a job fair. And, I kind of put my information in and didn't think that was going to go anywhere because didn't get a call for a few months. And then out of the blue, get this random phone call, and it's like, hey, this is the casino, and, we're getting ready to open this new concept. We need people. And I was like, yeah, sign me up. So I went through the whole rigmarole, and if anyone doesn't know, if you go to work in a casino, it is even as a cook or a food service worker, it is not easy to just get a job. I mean, I think I went through 5 interviews to get that job, between the initial hire, then talking to someone from HR, then talking to a chef, then you have to go do this like interview panel. It was crazy. And I was like, oh my God. So anyways, I did land the job. And so that was kind of my first gig into this. And the first place was at an upscale American place within the casino that was going to be closing down, but they had to place you to get everyone kind of set, and the people that were going to go over to this new buffet / a la carte kitchen. And I got my ass kicked, man. I was not ready for it. I thought I knew, I could hang. You had all these experienced cooks in the kitchen. I was literally scared to death. I did not know what to do. I'm leaning. What do I do? Just give me a task. I'm eager. I'm willing to learn. And ironically, that first day, I literally cut off the tip of my finger, bandaged it up, put on a glove, and did service. And the story goes deeper, but like that was my first day in the kitchen. Stuck it through. And it was about a year and a half I did that whole thing. And then my room chef had kind of followed me, or I followed him to where he was at in contract management. So, I then went into contract management at the university level and was in that for about a decade, man, running different universities, bouncing between executive chef or the GM, learning front of house P&L. It was really valuable and beneficial. So I did that for quite a while, and then ended up in a corporate role in the contract management world, doing everything from food safety to recipe development, contract management with the actual vendors, suppliers. So did that, and then, here I am today doing my own thing, consulting and whatnot, after my job was eliminated. And yeah, here I am talking to you.
Amazing. So tell us a little bit about, your time in the kitchen, right? What let's say skills, values, what did you learn through that tenure in the kitchen, right, that is applicable now in your everyday?
Work hard. I think that was instilled as a kid growing up on a farm, but work hard, you know, do what's asked of you, and just get it done, and you'll succeed pretty quickly. If you're able to learn and adapt, then you'll succeed. And I think that was the biggest thing, is I just was open ears. I was a sponge. Teach me, show me. I want to learn everything. When it was time to do like bulk cooking and learning how to cook for a buffet line of 1,000 people a day, they were like, hey, we want you to learn this. Absolutely, let's do it. You know, sat with one of the cooks, went through his whole thing. He showed me all the little tips and tricks on how to cook pasta, not boil over in the tilt, and not have to drain, like all these cool tips and tricks. And, you know, that really instilled, okay, if you work hard, you can make it. Because honestly, I didn't cook, quote unquote, for very long. I was only in the kitchen for a year and a half. And then when I took over in the contract management world, it's ironic. You get into it to cook, and then I'm in contract management as a manager, and you're not cooking anymore. You're just managing people. So that was a big, hard lesson to learn, that especially in a union environment, that you can't just jump in and cook. But what it did teach me is that other people were willing to learn and were eager to learn. And so I developed the skill of learning and developing people, and then that's how I ran my kitchen. So, you know, even today, even though there's no real team, it's knowing how to work with other people, continuing to be a sponge and learning, you know, through audio, video now, and the things that I'm learning. And again, I think just working hard.
Yeah. So I can see that you kind of aligned into more of a, let's say, a mentor role, right? You know, kind of getting your you know, challenges, you know, kind of learning the biz. Then you have an opportunity to kind of actually lead teams. How important it is to you know, build that development culture within the restaurant business, right? I think that a lot of let's say operators or restaurateurs not necessarily hold that as, you know, a priority. Do you see it that way? How does that affect the overall performance and let's say success of a restaurant?
It's everything. I think culture, especially the larger the team. Smaller team, it's easier to execute on some of those things because you're not having to instill principles and values that you want your kitchen to be if it's a smaller team. The teams I was leading, 50, 60, at one point 120 people at a time. And it's everything from cook to front of house to dishwasher. And you have to be able to know, you have to set the tone in the culture. And that takes time. That was one of the biggest things that was very hard for those above me to realize is I need time. Culture is not built overnight. And if you allow me to work with people and weed out, you have to get rid of, I hate to say it, the garbage, the cancer, the people that are holding everybody else back, because there are really good people in the kitchen, but then there's also that others that are just milking it, trying to get through the system, collect a paycheck. And there's nothing wrong with just collecting a paycheck. However, if you're not going to do it in a fashion in which you're contributing to the team, I can't have you. So leadership was everything, and I wanted to model what I wanted my team to do. So you hear from a lot of people, I wasn't willing to make someone do something that I myself was not willing to do and or learn. And I'm not saying, you know, every chef or every kitchen that you have to know every position. I wanted to know that because I wanted to know how to make their job easier, more effective, more efficient. And if and when I needed to help with the hiring process, I knew what was needed for those positions. I knew with the piece of culture, I knew what we needed to execute on those positions. So that's how I developed and built culture. And once you get a very good baseline and foundation, and you just treat people well, that's another thing. You have to treat people, you know, with respect, all of those things. That doesn't mean you can't still have standards and that you can't be stern with people. It just means that you've set a foundation and you have this team built. My retention rate was incredibly high, you know, 90+% in my kitchens, because people wanted to work because they were in an area where they knew they could learn and grow. And I think also that innate ability to allow people to grow if they wanted to, and that opportunities were available, really made it attractive.
Yeah, you know, I think that it's Ritz-Carlton that has this mindset or philosophy that, you know, ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen, and you know, I think that being able to lead by example by treating people with respect, it's non-negotiable in a way to be able to execute correctly, right? You want your staff, you know, your staff is basically your best marketing tool once they get there. It's like you walk into a restaurant, you can immediately understand if they're being taken care of or not, if there's a happy environment or not. So, what is your pet peeve in, let's say, operate? And I know that there's probably 10 of them, but what are some of those non-negotiables that you say a restaurant must operate on, must build their foundations on?
So for me, my pet peeves, like I walked in, I learned this after some time going through it and figuring out my systems and what I want to be. It was very simple. I'd walk in and people didn't believe that these are the foundations. I was come to work on time when you're scheduled. Okay. Do what I ask of you. And if it sounds unreasonable, absurd, or you don't understand, ask me and we're going to get along just fine. Literally, it was those things. And it was really funny because I actually had heard a group of cooks one time cooking or whatever they were doing. And one said, they're like, he's always on me. He's always writing me. And another one goes, if you just shut your mouth and did what he asked you to do, he leaves you alone because you're doing your job. And, the other one like nodded, they're like, yeah, just do what he asks. He's not asking you to do anything outside the norm. So I think if you just set the principles that your expectation and you hold firm to that within reasonable expectation, I think that's a pretty good way to start.
Chicago is known to be, one of the top 3, right? We can probably argue could be the number 1, right? Location for culinary expression. Obviously, you have New York. And then Vegas in a completely different at a completely different scale, right?
Right.
What in your experience, what makes Chicago unique in the restaurant culture scene, right? What is the special sauce that Chicago has been able to develop, as they grow the culinary market?
I think you said it. It's culture. The amount of cultural background differences. I know in the kitchens I had so many cultures in my kitchen, and the ability to learn from that, I don't know, it was attractive to me. It was really cool to see how other ethnicities operate, the verbiage they use, the mannerisms, all those kind of things really shake out, and you get a really true appreciation for the people and their culture. And I think that's what the blending is, right? America is the melting pot. And I think Chicago is that, right? You've got obviously pockets, neighborhoods, Little Italy's and Chinatown, etc. So you've got all the pockets where you've got that. But at the same token, you can find almost any type of cuisine anywhere throughout the city. And that's just good for restaurant business. When you have variety and you have option, it just makes it a traffic. Plus, it doesn't help. It definitely helps being a very large city with a lot of people that love food.
Yeah. Yeah, I found myself to recognize that when I was there, and you have a lot of people that are really ready to work, ready to, let's say, get their hands on the fire, right? Let me ask you, Jeff, throughout your career, right? And you've been a couple of decades in, probably a little more than that. What have you identified as maybe what has changed or the biggest changes within the hospitality or restaurant industry?
Labor is a big piece. Technology is a big piece. You just look at, again, it's been about 15 years since I was in my first kitchen, actually, and I look back and I now that I'm around all this equipment and tech and AI and everything, and I just think about how the hell did we survive without having tools such as ChatGPT or Gemini or all these things and apps to help us. It was very simplistic, and that's good and bad, I think, in some retrospects, because sometimes simpler is better, less is more, and tech can complicate things if it's not used in the right way. So I think the technology side has really changed, and but it's had to, because if it doesn't, I don't think the restaurant industry could survive at the level it needs to, because it's getting harder to find workers. And I was actually listening to another podcast the other day, and they said something about how it's not that people don't want to work, but it's like they want to work smarter. It's like, well, if I can go and work at a warehouse and make $25 an hour, packing boxes, and my work starts and stops when they say it starts and stops. Why would you go and work in a kitchen when the hours can be ridiculous, 10, 12, 14, 16 hours a day?
Right.
It's hot, it's sweaty. You know what I mean? It's not as appealing as it used to be. And we've kind of put this, like, I don't know, I feel like with like labor wages and everything else, it's turned into, everyone has to be paid $20, $25 an hour to work in a kitchen. And it's like, that's not what some of these positions are for. They're there to learn experience, to be part of a team, like all those type of things, and work your way, up. Like, yes, if you're single or no kids or, minimalist, yeah, sure, you could probably survive off a kitchen salary, but I don't think it was ever designed to be that way, So
Yeah.
I think those are kind of the two biggest changes that I've seen.
Yeah, I have to definitely agree with you. I think especially after COVID, the workforce definitely transformed a lot, right? I think that, there was that lack of talent. A lot of people left, and then all of a sudden you have, prices and wages. Everybody's competing to get chefs. Wages are driving up. I remember back in the day, you can easily talk about 20% EBITDA, and that's kind of the frame of the restaurant. That's almost impossible, right? Because raising prices and, like you said, employment. How do you see maybe technology and maybe AI playing a role into bringing back some of these margins into the restaurant, and maybe even making it more appealing for people to, let's say, jump into the business?
Yeah, AI is such a powerful. It's here. It's not going anywhere, people. So if you think it's a fad, you think it's going to fade out, you're wrong, in my opinion. It's going to allow us to do is, I'll use this analogy. When you go into a restaurant, and we're not talking fine dining, we're talking just your everyday restaurant. Nobody wants to be the guy or the gal that has to cut up 100 pounds of onions, right? Slice them. Like, that's just a methodical task that's boring. It's laborious. It's hard on the muscles. So what did manufacturers come out with? They came out with slicing and dicing equipment that's automated, right? You load it, you basically clean them, load them into a machine, pull down the lever, and it spits it all out to you, and the work is done in a fraction of the time, right? Well, what worker wouldn't want to be like, okay, great, now I can spend more time actually cooking, like the actual craft part of it, versus the laborious things. So to help those labor margins, I think what's going to happen is you're going to see it a lot more in the supply chain. You're going to see it in inventory management, in a way that a chef can kind of have a full bird's eye view all the time of what's going on in the kitchen without having to do a ton of the manual labor that normally you had to do, where I was taking inventory basically every day as I was ordering, where now if you have your kitchen running correctly, following recipes, doing production sheets, things of that nature that can really streamline the process, a lot of that can be automated. You may do a visual check, you may be doing some things from an invoice standpoint, but even then AI can reconcile and say, you ordered this, here's what your invoice said, and then you make adjustments there. It's going to say it's not right, something's off, you're missing, you were sent this and not this. You don't have to go through and figure all that out. That's the laborious stuff. It's going to do that for you. Same with labor. Trying to figure out labor models, being able to plug in to a large language model. Here's my operation. Here's the hours. Here's what I need my profit margin to be. Here's the labor statistics. Here's the average age demographics. You can plug all of that in, and then it can spit you out a labor model. I don't know how many hours I spent figuring out how many people do I actually need, and then you put it in practice, and then you're like, oh, nope, that's not going to work, and you have to completely retweak it. So, man, AI can really, really help that. But what I hope doesn't happen is that it creates those profit margins, and people get greedy, and that just goes right back into pockets. It doesn't get invested back into the people and into the operation.
Correct. Agreed. I mean, we're a lot of people talk about AI is going to take our jobs, and I think that's probably one of the biggest. I don't want to say misconceptions, because this is playing out, and we know that definitely there's going to be a change in how we approach job. But hospitality, in a way, we can't perform without humans. It's part of the nature of the game, right? In your opinion, what's your take on that AI is going to take people's jobs? And is it going to maybe help create other jobs or let's say push people to learn other skills that we weren't necessarily considering in the industry?
Two parts of that, or there are two parts to my answer. One, I love what Gary Vaynerchuk says about there were no tractors, and when tractors came around, everyone was freaking the F out about, oh my gosh, it's going to take all of our farming jobs. No, it just transformed that industry and created other jobs, right? So yes, while things are displaced, other new jobs are created. And yeah, I guess if you're on one complete side, you could say, oh, it is going to take everyone's job because you're going to have this doing that. But they still don't have that emotion. They don't have the part that makes us human, right? So there's that. And also, I think it is going to create a new set of jobs. It's going to allow people to focus on, I guess, things that matter more. And in our industry, there just aren't enough people. You need to supplement somehow. So if you physically just don't have the people, like people are like, oh, it's going to take all the jobs. There aren't enough. There aren't enough people to fill the jobs as it is. So we need something to help supplement it, whether that be a piece of cooking equipment that can replace a prep cook because it can slice dice faster, even though it's $15,000. Well, the wages for that person could be $20,000 plus that piece of equipment's never going to call off, right? It may break down here or there, but you're not out a person for a week or two if something happens. So I think it's going to take away the laborious things that people were doing, and I think it was just a waste of time. And it's going to allow people to think at a higher level, to be able to focus on the things that the actual, in our industry, the actual cooking piece of it. And yes, I know there's robots with arms and things like that, but they're still quite a ways away. I'm sorry. To be able to execute, they can do one or two things really, really good.
Right.
But if your restaurant does multiple things, like that robot's not going to be able to take the place of somebody physically putting together the dish.
Right. Agreed. I mean, we can think about plenty of, several tasks, right? Maybe in the kitchen itself that you can automate or robotize, right? But at the end of the day, there's a skill that I don't see how necessarily a robot can, all of a sudden, there's that innate also. There's this pulse that you have. There's this. Call it the X factor, where the chef is really breathing that putting that dish together. It takes more than just mechanics, right, to pull through.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Let's see, in your mind, where do you still see gaps, right, in the technology? What aspects of the business do you understand that we can leverage this technology? Or what do you see as the biggest pain points that maybe AI can bring solution to that?
I take a step further back. I think the pain point is people. People don't want to learn it, right? The technology is there. It's at your fingertips. People, if you just go to one, again, like I've said, there's 1,000, Perplexity, ChatGPT, Gemini, you name it, Grok. I keep going on and on. And you just plug in, I need help with this. It's going to give you a really good starting point. Yeah. But people are so hesitant and so against technology and saying, but it'll just take my job. I'm not doing that. Well, guess what? It's happened throughout history. If you don't adapt, you die. That's the end of it. And in this case, it's you're out of a job because guess what people are looking for? People with skills in AI. They understand how to use it in some capacity. It's funny. You remember back in the day where like every job at the bottom you would have proficient in Word, PowerPoint, Excel, right?
Yeah.
That was in everything. Well, guess what? Today that sentence is fluent in Gemini, ChatGPT, Nano Banana. Because if you're not, you can't. Your work can't be accelerated because that's what AI is doing. It is allowing people to be an accelerated version of themselves. So that way a company doesn't necessarily need as many doing one particular task.
Yeah. Do you find, let's say, have you understood maybe a reason why people are not really adopting AI, especially in this sector? Have you been able to identify that?
I think just it's human nature.
Yeah.
People are afraid of change. They don't
Yeah.
want to adapt or change. Man, you know me, chefs I talk to, and they're like, I've been in this game 40 years. Great, cool. And they're like, I know what I'm doing. Okay, cool, but I can speed your job up, and you don't need to do that anymore. And they're like, no, it can't. And I've shown a few. Hey, here's a piece of equipment. Here's what it's going to do. And some adapt, right? But it's in my opinion, a very small percentage. I think just people don't want to adapt and take the time to learn. It's such a parody, right? If you were just willing to put in a couple hours a week to learn this whole AI, put it in air quotes,
Right.
on the back end, the amount of time you would get back is tenfold. But people don't want to take that little bit of time. They want to do it the hard way, right?
Yeah.
There was that saying, what with, you can either try and do something and learn and fail the hard way, or you can find somebody who's done it and take the wisdom and not make the same mistake, right? It's kind of the same, in the same boat.
Yeah, agreed. And I know I'm in this sector. I'm offering AI solutions. It's funny because I had to pivot to other niches, right? Because I see that it's just a slow churn, and I understand. There's a lot of the margins, right? And you have your tech stack that you're kind of limited, into what else you add on, right? Into the tech stack. So, but I believe that 2026 adoption is going to definitely increase. Maybe 2027, 2028, we might be closer to building the architecture of a whole operation of a restaurant under the lens of AI. And I think that it has amazing capabilities in understanding design and helping you set up logistically your dining room and your line of the kitchen. And there's so much that we can even imagine where we can just add that data, and you have a program that can help us pretty much set these things up without much hesitation, right? So.
But why in 2020? Why do you think that this is the year? Why are people going to adopt that technology this year, right?
Well, my perspective, right, is that 6 months ago, there was this sentiment of, I don't want to, there was more of a scare. And people might still be afraid of it, yet they are starting to understand that there's no other way, right? That it is coming. And as people adopt and start using ChatGPT more common, which I think that the last year has been incredible. Right now, it's hard to find anybody that doesn't use ChatGPT. So I think it's a matter of time where you have some of these example models that are, using this framework, and then people are going to have to catch up. I think that. Results are going to tell the story, right? When you have successful stories coming out and saying, hey, I'm leveraging this, and now I don't need 3 chefs, I can do with 2 chefs because they don't have to be tied up in inventory, whatever. I think it's gonna transform a little bit, right? Let's talk about you and your services, right?
Sure.
As you, tell us a little bit about your proposal, what you offer to your clients, right? And services they can sign up for with you.
Yeah, I'm a very transparent person. Like, I'm still figuring out what the fuck I'm doing. Like, when I left the corporate world, that's all I knew. I knew how to be a really, really good drone bee and just put my head down. Yeah, I have my own ideas and thoughts, but unless you're at a certain level, right, they get suppressed down, and it's like, no, we need you to execute on this. Okay, cool. I'm going to execute at a super high level and very efficient. So that was, that's all I knew, is how to be very efficient and effective. And so when I went off on my own, it was kind of, well, there's 2 choices. I can try and build something on my own and not have to deal with I hate to say it, the corporate lifestyle where no matter how people are, let me take a step back. There are some jobs out there that are great, that are good. There are companies. I'm not saying this is all companies, but from my experience is that at the end of the day, you're still under somebody's thumb. Somebody still has control over that paycheck, and at any given day, like that, it can be gone for whatever reason. They don't have to give you a reason anymore, right? And with AI coming, guess what? Certain jobs we don't need anymore. And guess what? They're gonna try and find potentially the cheapest, easiest solution that's out there, right? It may not be the best solution, but that's what they want. So I say all that to say is that, what I've been trying to build is both, through my own podcast, quick plug, Fell in the Food podcast, go check it out, is how can I take some of the efficiencies and things that I learned in operations and bring that to people, right? I was in the education sector, so that's my bread and butter. So some of my clients, that's their target, and they need help in that space because it's an unknown space. It's its own thing. Everyone knows restaurants and how they work, but it's a very it's structured in education. But so what I can do for people, everything from operational excellence, recipe development, looking at their marketing needs. While I don't claim to be like a full-on marketing, company, I've been enough on the side and seen enough and built my own brand to understand kind of what it takes, especially if you're smaller. Like if you're a conglomerate global, like, am I going to help you? Probably not, right? You may want my perspective, but at the end of the day, I'm really looking for people who want to be more efficient in what they do. And again, I'm targeting kind of the education sector as a whole. And then again, on the technology side, helping bridge the gap. A lot of these places don't understand technology and how to bring it in their kitchen. Well, I can help with that too, right? I understand kitchens. I'm a chef by trade, but I also understand, I've always been a tech chef, so I understand both the real world application and the back end application and what it takes to apply it to your operation.
You mentioned something, marketing, and how crucial it is nowadays for a restaurant to have a strong plan, a marketing plan. Let's say, can a restaurant make it without having social media presence, right? And probably we can say they can make it, but how important it is for a good foundation, online presence and being active in some of these platforms, right, to promote your business.
Well, let me ask you a question. When you travel and you go to a new city you've never been to, what's the first thing you do?
You open
right?
probably open table, or you go to Instagram to see what's going on or whatever. Yeah, absolutely. There you go.
The first thing you do is you grab this, you go online, you search whether again it's in Google, whatever, and it's food in blah 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 near me. And guess what? It's going to pull open results. It's going to have websites. It's going to have Instagram pages. I'm looking at that stuff. I want to know that the place just isn't like a hole in the wall, like dump, because that's not what I want. Even though it's the closest, I want to make sure I still have a decent experience, depending on the travel. So, can you make it without social media presence? Yeah, it's going to be really damn hard when that's what people want to see. They want to know what they're getting into. Even if you're a top name brand, right? If you're somebody that's in that middle echelon financially and you want to go out for a really special occasion, anniversary, birthday, guess what? You're going to probably do more research on where you're going to go because you're going to drop $300, $400, $500 per person, and maybe you've saved for years for something like this. You're not just going to blindly go and be like, oh, there's this restaurant and people say it's really good, so we have to go. People don't do that anymore. Yes, recommendations. I still take in high regards a lot of my chef friends, like, hey, I'm in this town. Where would you recommend? Guess what? Even with the recommendation, I still look up that restaurant. I still look at what's their menu. They may like it, but maybe they don't have something that I'm in the mood for, right? Oh, this restaurant is upscale French. Maybe I'm not in a mood for some escargot. You know what I mean? Maybe I just want a greasy pizza or a burger. So, again, everybody's got a phone. I don't care I don't know many people that don't have a phone. It's not hard to hit record and upload something. Have you seen it here in the Chicago region? I think she's in Geneva, but it's Judy's Pancake House. She is phenomenal. I don't know if you've seen it or not. She has these little glasses and she like plays off of other videos and she's like, Judy's Pancakes. You want some, get some. And like
Yeah.
it's exploded. And it's like she didn't have some crazy marketing team behind her to like make these. She literally just had somebody record her doing something funny, and she kind of has that stitch and put it out there. But she was consistent.
Yeah.
Consistency. If you think, I hear a lot of places will say, well, we tried that social media thing and it didn't work. Okay, well, what did social media mean to you? Well, we posted on Facebook a couple times and nobody really liked it or commented.
Right.
Okay, that doesn't mean it didn't work. It just might mean that your content sucks, right? Because
Yeah.
today's social media is really about what people want, right? The algorithms feed people what you want. If you stay and watch something long enough, guess what? It's going to feed you more of that, and it's a
Yeah.
lot less about just your follower count, right? You can have, look at the Dr. Pepper girl, right? That's a phenomenon, right? She had a commercial launch with Dr. Pepper because she literally sang into her phone, the little Dr. Pepper jingle, and it turned her, her following's over 1 million now. I didn't take anything. She turned on her phone. Now, is that going to happen for everybody? No, but you're never going to know or never have that potential if you don't even try.
Yeah. What are people getting wrong in in content in social media? What do you think what are they missing, right?
They're overthinking it. I did it for a very long time. I would sit and prepare, and I'm blessed to be in a kitchen studio, and we have lights and we have cameras and we have cookingware. I was trying to make everything so perfect.
Perfect.
Because in my mind was, if it's not perfect, people aren't going to want to watch it or see what I have to say. It's the complete opposite. People want to hear what's on your mind, what you have to say. Do lights and things of that nature help? Absolutely. You got to have good audio, things of that nature, because nobody wants to hear scratching and screeching, when you're trying to talk. Just do it. Quit overthinking the process. Record something. You'll figure out your strategy on what works and what doesn't work. There's so many tools with all the different platforms and testing and A/B this, and those are great and they do work. But if you don't start, it doesn't matter. So just hit record, do something, and put it out there. And I think that's what a lot of people are missing, is they're just afraid to press record.
Yeah. I've spoken to a lot of marketing, let's say gurus, right, or people that are very successful in the marketing world, and they always kind of mention the aspect of storytelling, and I know you're big on that. What is the essence, right? Why storytelling, right? How does that impact, right, the audience, in your opinion?
I think it's human nature. Going back to it, how did any information get passed down from the beginning of time? Through a story, right? They would tell their children would tell their children, and it would continue. And that's the best thing. I know, at least when I was in college, some of the best times were just sitting around a table drinking a beer and telling stories. Random stories of this happened, that happened, and that was some of the most memorable times that I've ever had. It was all based around stories. So if you take that to a level of marketing and you're trying to get something across, giving a story allows people to buy in. What is it that they're going to be consuming, buying, whatever it is? Telling that story allows them to feel like they're part of it, that they're almost connected to you in some given way. And it's not innate for people and to tell story. It's been hard for me. I've continuously tried to learn and grow and listen to transcripts and what am I saying, what am I not saying. And I even listen. It's weird, but I listen back all the episodes and I'll say, damn it, I keep saying this. I keep saying that. I need to remove this. They were trying to tell a point and I didn't enact on it. And I watch other people who tell really good stories. Diary of a CEO, Jay Shetty on Purpose. They are really good storytellers with any subject. And I found that a lot of that storytelling is by them actually not talking that much and helping their guest through the story and allowing them to tell it in a way that it draws people in.
Right. 100%. Jeff, let me ask you, from where we are now, where do you see hospitality in 5 years? What are the major changes that are going to happen, or where do you think that people need to align right? In order to kind of stay up to date with the trends that are happening and relevant in this such a competitive, difficult landscape, right? That we're all in.
5 years is such a hard timeline to go by. If you really think how fast the world is changing now,
Right.
think about it. Plant-based was all the rage a few years ago. We're only 3 years removed from that, and it's gone completely flipped, and people are like back to grass-fed
Yeah.
proteins and home cooking and all this. And so in a finger snap, things can change because information flows so fast because
Right.
of the internet, because of social media, that trends can change so fast. All it takes is one really good piece of content, one character, one influencer, somebody who has a lot of influence that can change a segment completely. But if I had to bet it in 5 years, it's going to come back down. It's headed that way. Is the roots of cooking just really good quality at a high level? You are going to see more robotics in the kitchen. You're going to see, but I still think it's going to be that lower level. I don't think it's going to be in your really nice casual restaurants taking over. You're going to see it in chains, right? They're
Right.
already implementing it, developing it. So I think you're going to see an acceleration and a growth of that. And then from a health side, the way that, like, especially in America at least, like with GLP-1s, people are going to start trending towards those type of meals and diet, because when you can just inject yourself, Americans are lazy. I hate to say it. They're not willing to work hard for what it takes to be healthy. And there's going to be
Right.
some ramifications in the future, I think, of that with the muscle mass and your bone density loss. But that's a whole nother topic. But that's where I'd put my eggs at, is better eating, home cooking, better quality ingredients.
Amazing. Jeff, let me ask you, to those young entrepreneurs or people that are kind of jumping into hospitality. Maybe I wouldn't say entrepreneurs, but yeah, people jumping into hospitality with big aspirations. That story of young chef wants to, or young
Take over the world.
take over the world. What advice would you give them entering into the restaurant business today, right? That you wish you would have known, let's say, when you were young.
I think I always knew it. It's a hard concept to swallow, is that success takes time.
Yeah.
Unless you're a freak of nature. But even then, a freak of nature is Mr. Beast. How many years did he put into YouTube and trying to develop and create? 10, 15 until he actually exploded? That's what people don't see on the iceberg. There's all this ice underneath, which is all the work, all the experience, all the trials and tribulations that I believe you have to go through in order to succeed. And that's what it's going to take. I thought I was going to rule the world in my mid-20s. I'm like, I can do whatever. And once I realized that it's just going to take time, that things just come to you. They'll just hit you when you're least expecting it. It's kind of like the dating world, right? If you're looking for it, like, you'll never find someone, but all of a sudden when you just let back and live life, it's amazing how it just comes to you and attracts you. So I would just say, put your head down, get as many experiences as humanly possible. And yeah, it's just going to take time.
Absolutely. Listen, Jeff, it's been an amazing conversation. We really thank you so much for kind of joining in and helping us exchange ideas. For those trying to find you, maybe know a little bit about you, how can they get a hold of you? How do they contact or connect with Fell Into Food podcast?
Yeah. So just you can check out the website, fellintofood.com. All the social handles are either Fell Into Food, or I do have kind of the personal Chef Jeffel on some platforms that I kind of, it's depending on the platform and working through that whole marketing scheme. I thought it was clever to have both, but it's a lot of work to manage two socials when you're kind of doing the same thing. So, but the easiest way is just to go to the website, fellintofood.com.
Amazing, Jeff. Listen, you're doing great content. Continue doing what you're doing. I'm in the same boat as you. Sometimes I wake up and I'm like, what am I doing, right? But I think that we're in a way in the right track, and ultimately, we're gonna all expand. It's all about how hard work and continue, to be perseverant. So, thank you again for joining, and hopefully we'll be in touch. Can't wait to visit Chicago. I really, even though it's 14 degrees. There's a part of me that misses it, so I'll let you know when I'm in town. All right?
When you're in town, if you're gonna swing by for NRA, let me know. I'd love to meet in person, do something here at the studio. But Alex, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jeff. Appreciate it. Thank you.